Hi, welcome back to the channel. I'm Michelle, and today I want to talk about homeschool mom confessions. Now, I have a video where I go through some homeschool mom confessions. This will be part 2. Now, I have a feeling it'll be an ongoing series as I find, if I find something that catches my mind, I'll jot it down on my phone, and once I get a list, I'll make another video. That's kind of how this happened, but I feel like there's always things we have to confess. So I'm going to get right into it. These are 10 homeschool mom confessions. Number 1, I don't like nature study. And it's not that I don't like nature. I do enjoy, animals and learning about things. I'm not an outdoors person. I don't like, when it's really cold. I don't like when it's really hot. I've always been the person that prefers to sit inside and read a book, even from being, a kid. I don't enjoy nature journaling or anything like that, and it's completely fine. I think you can appreciate something or get inspiration from it, but not have to incorporate it into your homeschool, and that's kind of where we're at. So, number 2, I really don't enjoy read-alouds. Let me rephrase that. I don't enjoy reading to my children, which might be, oh my God, in homeschool. But it could be because I don't really enjoy fiction books. I am an avid nonfiction reader. I always enjoy reading things where I learn from or gain knowledge. But when it comes to read-alouds, because we do a fair amount of read-alouds in our Torchlight curriculum, most of them are audiobooks, which I do enjoy sitting and listening to the audiobooks. But when it comes to me physically reading them, I don't enjoy it. And it could be because I don't really get into the characters. I don't do voices. I don't make it really interesting. I'm not very, animated. So that could be why, but it seems like another thing I have to do to check off a list. And luckily, most of the time we can get audiobooks for the books we have to read. But for example, right now, we're reading Peter and the Starcatchers, and it's just a lot. It feels like more things I have to do, and it's not something I really get enjoyment for. Now, when we're talking about just regular picture books, I do enjoy reading those to my kids, but now that we've gotten into much longer chapter books, I don't enjoy reading that. Number 3 is I feel guilty about the time and the resources I spend on my older children opposed to my younger children. So I have a 10-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old. I feel like most of the resources we're using are going to financially, like the curriculum and things like that, experiences are going towards my oldest. And that could be, yes, she's the oldest, she's the first going through this, but I spend a lot of time, planning and prepping and things for her. And most of the time with my 6-year-old, she'll just do what her older sister did. There are some adjustments that, occasionally are made, but I don't go out of my way to find things specifically for her all the time, in her own interest. And then with my youngest, I feel like he's just along for the ride. And I do feel, some guilt about that if my oldest, because right now, if my kids were in public school, my 10-year-old and 6-year-old would be in public school, my 3-year-old would be home all alone with me, and he'd have all of the time for me. And sometimes I wonder if he gets so crazy or so loud or, let's be frank, obnoxious, because he doesn't have that one-on-one time with me. And I can only do so much. I can only be stretched so much. I have things I do, responsibilities within the home. I have homeschooling, educating my children. I do work for our church. And then I also help run a co-op. So I have all these little things, and I feel like it takes a chunk of time. And I feel like I spend a lot of my time and resources on my older kids, and my younger kids tend to miss out. Number 4 is I really, really miss the silence in my house. Let's take a moment for that. And what I mean by that is, when my oldest was in public school, I had a toddler at home, and it was just her, and my middle child has always been, on the quieter side. Both my older kids my 10 and 6-year-old have always been a bit on the quieter side. So it was nice to have that one-on-one time, and I'm a person that's very affected by my environment. If it's loud, if it's chaotic, it's very triggering for me. I grew up in a very loud, chaotic environment, and it causes me anxiety. So not just that I miss silence, it literally affects me. So now that everybody's home all the time, it's just so loud, and that really does affect me. And it's not like I can go into a different part of the house and not hear them. First of all, I can't leave my 3-year-old unsupervised, or he will find something horrible to do to himself, and that's just who he is. And there's just a lot of, sibling fighting and arguing about the dumbest stuff. The other day they were arguing about toilet paper rolls and who got to keep it for crafting. And it's just things like that. I miss the silence, being able to sit down, and especially since we're in the middle of winter, they can't go outside in the backyard and play, they can't go to the park. My husband works crazy hours, so his ability to take them isn't really there. We don't live by family or anything like that, so it's just a lot all the time. It's very overwhelming for me, and it's very sensory overload. So I really miss the silence. I feel like we start our days, nice and quiet and things like that. By the end of the day, I feel like I'm the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, in the part where, he tells Belle to come down for dinner and she says no, and he freaks out and says, well then fine, starve. That's me by the end of the day. I feel like I'm like, ah. So, number 5 is I use our co-op classes to teach the things I either don't like teaching or don't want to or don't have time to include in our homeschool. So for example, I talked about I really don't enjoy nature study. That is one of our classes in co-op, which is so nice that another mom can take it over and lead it, because I'm just not a nature study type person. Same with poetry tea time. I have nowhere to fit that into our normal schedule. So luckily, co-op's there, covers that area. We have a lot of fun. Same thing with, I really wanted to cover photography with my daughter, my 10-year-old, so we did that as a co-op class. So it's really nice to use the co-op, and because I help run it, I do have a say in this. I also, take surveys from parents and kids and what they want and things like that. But it's nice to use that as a way to fit things in that we either don't have time for or that I'm not really excited to teach. Number 6 is I really miss working outside the home. Now, before I had kids, I fully intended on, they would go to daycare and I would continue working. That completely changed when I had my oldest. I had a very difficult time leaving her. I don't think I left her at all for the first year of her life. And some of that is just some anxiety I had a previous pregnancy loss, and I was always waiting for something horrible to happen. And that other shoe to drop. So going back just was not an option for me. And then I said, okay, well, when my kids are all old enough to be in public school, then I'll go back to work. So I kind of had that, okay, when this happens, I can go back to work. And it's not just, financial, although it would be nice to have a second income in our family. It's that I really do enjoy working. I enjoy using my skills and interacting with people, and I take a lot of pride in my work and what I produce or what I do. So not having that outside, you're doing a good job, or you're having a conversation with someone that's over the age of 10 would be really nice. But I really do miss working outside the home, and over the past few years, opportunities have presented itself that I would really like to take that job or that position, but it would greatly impact my ability to homeschool. And I know there are a lot of people that, side hustle or work full time when homeschooling. I just know personally that I can't stretch myself that thin, especially with my husband's work schedule and things like that. I can't do it. If it ever came financially down to it, it'd probably be one of those things where my kids would have to go back to public school. But thankfully, we're in a position where that isn't happening. But I really do miss working outside the home. Number 7, I have a tendency to always put myself last, and the homeschooling kind of exacerbates that. So it makes it that much harder. So, I grew up with a single mom, so my norm was always mom did everything. So that's kind of my default. On top of that, like I've said many times, my husband is a pastor and he has a very demanding job. He's always on call. He has meetings later in the day. It's never a 9-to-5 type things. Weekends don't really exist. So it's just really hard to prioritize myself. You add in, I do stuff for co-op, I do stuff for our church, I'm homeschooling the kids. I talk about this in my goals video for 2023. That one of my goals is to really prioritize myself and do things for myself. But I find that homeschooling has just tugged me a little bit more to, okay, well, maybe I don't need to do this, but I'll do that for, my kids, or I'll make sure dinner is on the table for the family, but I'm not making sure I'm taking time for myself and realizing that it's important that, I think as moms, it's so easy to put everyone first, but it's very important that we take care of ourselves. So number 8 would be, I get nervous telling people I don't know very well that I homeschool, which is kind of funny since, I talk about it on this channel very much, and, I don't know the majority of you out there. But, friends, family, I have no problem talking about our homeschooling and how it's going or my decision to homeschool. But when it comes to strangers I don't know very well, I'm always hesitant because I think I'm going to get some kind of negative reaction, but I've never got a negative reaction. So I don't know where that nervousness comes from. My kids have absolutely no hesitation. They're very excited that they homeschool. They'll tell their friends, they'll tell people at church. It doesn't faze them. They don't feel left out or ostracized in any way. But me personally, I'm always afraid that some adult is going to have some snarky remark or something for it. Like, for example, we were at the playground last summer, and it was just about when public school was about to start. And there was an older lady walking her dog there, and she stopped to talk to my kids. She's like, "Oh, are you guys excited for school?" Mind you, we school year round, and they're kind of like not sure what to say. And I'm like, do I tell this woman that, oh, actually we started school, we're homeschooling, and then lead into a much longer conversation? Do you just skip in and be like, oh yeah, they're excited for school? Like, I don't know what you do in those, heat of the moments when people ask you questions, but I'm always like, do I tell them? Do I go forward not knowing their reaction? Number 9, I really enjoy planning and researching homeschooling, everything homeschooling. So techniques, education, learning styles, how children's brains work. So social emotional, I enjoy it all. And I really do enjoy research. I've always, in college, I did a lot of market research as part of my undergrad. So I really enjoy learning that aspect of things. So when it comes to curriculum, I do dive deep. I don't only look at the curriculum and the reviews, but I look at the authors, their credentials, I look at the company, and this is something I do actually really enjoy, and why I feel so confident in the choices I make, especially when it comes to curriculum, because I've learned so much about that specific company or that curriculum, or how best a child's brain works for this situation. So it does have some positive things, but for example, the other day I spent probably a good 2 hours of my free time just researching middle school and high school science. And my daughter is in 4th grade. Now, mind you, it's not something I probably need to plan that far ahead in, especially since I give my daughters the option of public school every year if they want to go to public school. So there's a chance I may never teach middle school science or high school science to one of my daughters. But I really like to be prepared. I think it helps to have a plan of where you're going, because then you can set up stepping stones to get to that area. So for example, with high school sciences, I know, especially in the state I live, they have to have 2 lab sciences. It's really harder to find secular homeschooling sciences, so that's something I'm always diving deeper into and trying to figure out. And then, for certain sciences, I believe it's chemistry, you have to have a certain type of math, like algebra or pre-algebra or something like that. So making sure they're on track, that if they want to do this area, or if they want to dual enroll, what things would they have needed to cover before we get to, freshman year, and I'm freaking out that all these things have to happen. So I really do enjoy the research aspect of homeschooling, almost to the point where it's kind of a hobby. So the last one, number 10, is, and I think probably the most important, I don't have it all together. I think it's very easy on social media, on this little screen you see here, that I come off very well prepared, or I have it all together, or I know what I'm doing, or I'm very confident. And yeah, I'm just figuring it out as I go. I'm not some expert telling you these things. I share my journey in hopes that it will help someone or inspire someone. That doesn't mean I have it all together. I want to be completely honest like that. I feel like social media gives you the best of everything and the best of our lives, but it's also not very realistic. And I think I am definitely very upfront on my channel. And one of the parts of that is that I'm confident in the choices I make, and I'm confident in the things I talk about, because I really don't care what others think, their opinions on me, or the curriculum I choose. I do enjoy feedback and suggestions and that conversation, but if someone has something negative to say, I don't really care. I mean, I've always been the type that's kind of been between two groups of people. Like, I was never the kid that enjoyed sports, or I was never extroverted. I was always the reader. I was definitely different than most of my family growing up. In fact, if I didn't look so much like my mother, I would have assumed I was adopted. And then in college, I didn't want to go out, and in high school too, I didn't want to go out and party. In middle school and high school, I was never really all boy crazy. Like, I've always been that little bit of different. So to be on this channel doesn't really affect me when people have issues with what things I do or say, but I just want you to know, as the viewer, that you get a glimpse into my life, and I try to give, as best I can, the most accurate portrayal of that. But there are things I will never show, like, my kids melting down. I try to share my personal struggles as I will, but there are things I won't share that my children are going through or struggling with, due to privacy, for their that they wouldn't want people to know about, things like that. But I want you to know I don't have it all together. I don't have it all figured out. So those are my 10 homeschool mom confessions. If you have any questions, or if you would like to share any of your confessions, leave them down below. If not, thank you for watching.